Hey everybody, I am with David Rosen, who is a director at the gigantic PR firm, global PR firm of Burson Marsteller. He's a director in their corporate division, and we've been having a fascinating conversation here in Manhattan today about some of his observations about social media adoption on an enterprise level. And I just wanted to capture that for the blog community. And David, you were telling me about your observations about what changed in 2008. All of a sudden, you started to get yeses from corporate leaders who had been saying no. What happened in 2008?
I think really it was Obama's win, because there were a lot of people who had been adopting social media, the early adopters, probably 1 or 2 years before in the consumer space, and then Obama happened, and everybody knew that there's nobody get away from it. Something that had never happened before happens, and everybody knew that social media played a big role in it, and that's when when I really saw the break in the dam. Get me some of that social media. What Obama did, get me some of that.
So then that was the first step toward yes.
Yep.
And then last year earlier this year, something more dramatic happened.
I think especially in the corporate space, that's where you start a lot of yeses, and a lot of experimentation, and then Tunisia and Egypt happened, and that's where I think global companies really started to get the ones who had been lagging behind, that social media was something that could not only just happen in America, but could happen in places where it was much harder to get your message out.
Yeah.
So I mean, there was these are things that were once in a generation or multiple generation events, and that's where they saw, wow, I really need to get a handle on this and get involved.
So that's really fascinating that you see that these political and really sociological events have had a big impact on the understanding of social media and how it's being embraced on a corporate level. Now, one of the things that's been so interesting to me and been one of the themes in my writing and on my blog is this idea of the company culture as either an enabler or a hindrance when you're trying to create a social organization. So tell me about that. Now, once you start getting companies to yes, how do you get them to execute in an effective way?
I think it's really a lot of the companies are actually, I think, especially heads of corporate communications, are starting out from the point of realizing that they have never had control over it. So it's really, especially for the companies that have a couple 100,000 employees or more, they're thinking, how do we turn this into an enablement tool? And that's where a lot of them start to make mistakes. They say, okay, let's start setting up some channels, or let's start engaging in the blogosphere without any preparation work. And really, it starts out just like any kind of classic communications question, which is, what is the business goal? And a business goal is not, let's increase our reputation. A business goal is, let's sell more stuff, let's get more volume, which means getting more people to pay attention to you. Let's sell our stuff for more, which means let's have people understand why our products and services are more valuable and lifting margins. Or let's lower cost of acquiring human capital, or let's lower cost of R&D. Those are business goals. They're on the bottom line. They've been there for 50 years, and that's where you start.
Yeah,
which is
absolutely.
That's a strange place for a lot of communications people to start.
Right.
But because the metrics are there now, we can be held accountable for that and embrace that accountability. So where do you start once you have your business goal? Then you got to do research. It's like, okay, we're gonna try to sell more of our stuff. Well, how are our customers using social media? And as one of the channels that they are getting their information from. And what I love is I love when I'm wrong about an assumption, because I'll sit there thinking, okay, I know how this particular audience, they must be into blogs, they must be into Facebook or LinkedIn, and then you go and you look at the data, and you realize either you were right to a certain degree or you were wrong to a certain degree. So you do your research first and find out where the heck your people are. Because if you're showing up in a place where your target audience isn't, well, you're wasting time and you're wasting opportunity.
Yeah.
So you figure out, okay, where are the people?
Yeah.
Are there really important steps, and you kind of have to go through them in the right order, or things are going to get screwed up, is you got to get the right people at the table. And that sounds boring, and it sounds like a mess, and it sounds like bureaucracy. The fact is that if you're trying to change the direction of the ship, you have to have the people at the table. You have to have human resources, legal, IR, HR, HR, so that have them there twice. Salespeople and your regular employees. You got to have all those functions there, and IT, because IT can shut things down or help to enable. You got to have them at the table. And when everybody is looking at the business goal, then you have agreement automatically from the start.
Yeah.
And that's why if you do these things in the wrong order, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Don't bring the people to the table until you have the business goal.
Well, David, it's obviously I am really aligned with your thinking about breaking this down into pieces and to really focusing on the fundamentals of the business, aligning it with the fundamentals of the business, and it's just really refreshing to hear that opinion today. Where can people find you on the web? You have a tremendous blog, and where can people find you, David?
I blog at b2bformula.com. It's b2bformula.com. Which is all about turning social media into a business science. And then on Twitter, David H. Rosen.
All right. Thanks so much, David.
Thank you, Mark.